The original Bill of Rights protected the rights of citizens from infringement by the federal government, but made no mention of the states. The 14th Amendment, which was adopted shortly after the Civil War, protected citizenship and individual rights from infringement by state governments. Under the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, the United States Supreme Court began to apply the most important rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights against the states. This process began in the early 1900s and is known as the doctrine of selective incorporation. Duncan v. Louisiana was the landmark case in which the court incorporated the Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial against the states. In 1966, Gary Duncan was charged in Louisiana with simple battery, a misdemeanor punishable by up to 2 years in prison and a $300 fine. Duncan requested a jury trial, but at the time, Louisiana granted jury trials only in cases punishable by execution or imprisonment at hard labor, and the Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial had not yet been incorporated against the states. Duncan's request was denied. He was convicted after a bench trial and sentenced to 60 days in prison and a $10 fine. Duncan appealed to the Louisiana Supreme Court, but it declined to hear the case. Duncan then petitioned the United States Supreme Court for review, asserting that the Sixth and 14th Amendments guaranteed his right to a jury trial. The issue before the court was whether the Sixth and 14th Amendments guarantee the right to a jury trial in state-level criminal prosecutions. The court held that the right to a jury trial is fundamental to the American criminal justice system, and that the 14th Amendment guarantees the right to a jury trial in all criminal prosecutions for serious crimes, including those brought in state courts. Writing for the court, Justice White reasoned that only those rights that are fundamental should be incorporated against the states through the 14th Amendment. After considering the history of the right to a jury trial in English and American common law, White determined that the right to a jury trial was well established throughout English and American history. The jury right shielded criminal defendants from oppressive and overreaching governments. The court concluded that the right to a jury trial is a fundamental right, and thus should be incorporated against the states through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. The court also noted that historically this right has applied only to serious crimes, while petty offenses did not give rise to a right to a jury trial. The court then had to determine whether simple battery was a serious crime under Louisiana law. The state argued that it was a petty offense because Duncan was sentenced to only 60 days in prison. However, because the maximum possible sentence for the offense was 2 years in prison, the court found Duncan's actual sentence was irrelevant. The court decided that any crime carrying a potential 2-year sentence was a serious offense, triggering the right to a jury trial. However, the court didn't articulate the exact line between petty and serious offenses. Thus, the court held that the state of Louisiana violated Duncan's 14th Amendment right to a jury trial by charging him with a serious offense and denying him a trial by jury. Accordingly, Duncan's conviction was reversed. Justice Black concurred, joined by Justice Douglas. Justice Black supported total incorporation of the Bill of Rights against the states. Black believed that the 14th Amendment was intended in part to apply the entire Bill of Rights to the states. Even still, Black was supportive of the court's selective approach to incorporation. Justice Fortas also wrote a concurring opinion. Fortas agreed that the right to a jury trial should be incorporated against the states, but he was concerned that the majority's opinion would be construed to require states to implement the federal procedures for jury trials, such as requiring unanimous verdicts and 12-person jury panels. Fortas believed the exact form of the jury was not fundamental to the right, and that states should be permitted to formulate their own rules and procedures as long as they don't impair the actual right. Justice Harlan dissented, joined by Justice Stewart. Harlan believed that the 14th Amendment required state criminal trials to be fair in all aspects, but that it didn't necessarily require a trial by jury. Harlan believed that each state should be able to formulate its own rules and procedures regarding criminal trials so long as those procedures were fair. Duncan v. Louisiana represented another important step in the court's gradual, selective incorporation of the Bill of Rights against the states through the 14th Amendment.